From Athens, Greece, the 9th and final day of the Track and Field World Championships. And what better way to both honor tradition and bring the championships to a climax than with the running of the men's marathon on its original course, first traversed more than 2,000 years ago. And Frank Shorter, more than a few of the 119 runners, must have pondered Pheidippides and his run to Athens from Marathon in the hours preceding this race.
And also, Tom, they got a cue from yesterday's race with the women. It's even hotter today. I think they're going to be very conservative at the start. If they learned anything from the women's race won by Hiromi Suzuki from Japan, it is take it easy at the start, and if you're really going to try to win, do it somewhere in the middle.
Race time temperature 88 degrees with the humidity at 51%. And the race is underway.
They don't worry about false starts in the marathon, Tom. They're going to bring it back. Half a second, doesn't matter.
As we said, 119 runners for the just over 26-mile journey. When we left you yesterday, the women's 4x100-meter relay final was getting set. The Americans were heavy favorites and expected to threaten the world record. But as the men's team had shown earlier in the day, there are no guarantees in the perilous world of relay running. Frank, they are on their way in the marathon now. Is there going to be a critical point in this race?
Well, yesterday in the women's race, Hiromi Suzuki took off at 18 miles, ran to the top of the hill at 20, and coasted to the finish. I was paying attention. Let's see if the rest of the field here today was watching too.
And the men's marathon runners continue their trek toward Athens. There are 5 Americans in the race. There's one of them, Dave Scudamore. Won his marathon debut in Pittsburgh, and there's another. That's Dan Held of the United States. We'll be back to Athens in just a moment. The men's marathon continues at the World Championships, less than 3 miles into the race now, and just taking a turn past the tomb of the Athenian soldiers from the ancient battle of Marathon against the Persians.
And just as was predicted, they are strolling along at well over 5-minute pace, about 5 minutes and 10 seconds per mile. From what I can figure, each kilometer is measured along the route. And they are just settling in, just looking at each other. And you really cannot tell right now who's doing well and who isn't, because they're essentially warming up.
As they start the race, is there sort of a rush of adrenaline that keeps everyone there together for a while?
Well, that's why you have certain people out in front, perhaps, who shouldn't be there. But at this point in the race, with this kind of heat, you don't need a thermometer to tell you how hot it is. And what you're trying to do, in a sense, is get a feeling for how you are going to go that day. You're saying, okay, I'm going along at this effort and this pace. How does everyone else seem to feel? And you're sort of taking stock of yourself. How am I going to do? Because you know that at a certain point it's going to get very, very difficult. Here, really, you're just warming up.
Hard to believe that you're just warming up and when you've almost gone 3 miles. And we saw a shot of that tree. Shade is a pretty precious commodity right around here. In fact, as we said, this is more or less the original marathon route. And let's take a look at the course map as they make their way from Marathon into Athens. The race starts, of course, in Marathon and begins its 26-mile trek along the coast, winding its way toward Athens. Between the 6 and 10-mile marks, the runners will pass by the beach towns of Nea Makri and Mati, 2 of the most picturesque towns surrounding the capital city. Home to some of the area's most scenic beaches, many Athenians own summer homes here. Around 13 miles, the runners reach Rafina, the second most important port of Athens, behind the bustling port of Piraeus, located in downtown Athens. Many cruises to nearby islands depart from Rafina. Nearly halfway to the finish line, the competitors pass through the vineyards of Pakermi, where wine stands dot the roadside, the point of origin for some of Athens' best white wines. After Pakermi, the runners will make their way to downtown Athens. In the shadow of the Acropolis, the marathon will finish at Panathenaic Stadium, which has been occupied for the last 2,300 years and reconstructed for the first modern Olympics in 1896, where a Greek water carrier named Spiridon Lewis won the first Olympic marathon. The World Championships Marathon, revisiting Greece, past and present. And there is a shot from the air of the tomb of the Athenian soldiers who died defeating the Persians in the Battle of Marathon, which inspired this race. Pheidippides' run to bring news of the victory back to Athens.
And the runners have just gone beyond the 5-kilometer point, 15 minutes and 44 seconds. Very leisurely pace. Third place, you can see one of the favorites, Tukhbatullin from Ethiopia. He's run 2:09 earlier this year in Japan, so he's well. There's Dos Santos from Brazil, and the sunglasses just went by. So all the favorites are up there, but you can see that it's already stretching out. And these runners behind, the ones that are laying off the pace, are just doing this because they feel if they've got any shot at all, they really have to go easily at the start. But in major competitions, the general rule is the medals come from the front group. So the runners from behind who are already conceding here are just in it for the experience.
Olive branches are the traditional Greek memento of victory, and you saw the runners being showered with olive branches as they went by one portion of the crowd a couple of moments ago.
Now we might talk a little bit about some of the favorites here. Martín Fiz from Spain, he is the defending world champion, and he's run very, very well this year. Antonio Pinto from Portugal won the London Marathon earlier this year. So it really is a battle between, I think, Spain and Portugal. The Spanish in particular have brought a very, very strong team. All of their runners have run under 2 hours and 10 minutes. There's Dan Hill going by. All their runners have run under 2 hours and 10 minutes this year, so they're very, very good.
And something new to talk about, too, is the team championship, which has been inaugurated. And you would have to say that some of the runners you mentioned will play a part in determining the team gold medal winner here in Athens.
Well, if it runs anything like the women's race yesterday, the Japanese brought a very, very strong team, did very well. 3 women in the top 10, took the team championship, and they were very, very serious about it.
Some separation beginning with the runners now. As Frank noted, they begin to sort themselves out as they continue now 18 minutes into the race.
You can't see it now because of this shot, but there is Jean-Paul Gimwane from Burundi is the runner out in front, and this is a very good example of adrenaline in a major marathon. Here's a man with a personal best of about 2 hours and 13 minutes, and he's out there in front just 5 or 10 meters ahead of the pack, which you just don't do. You either run with the pack or you try to get ahead and get a lead, but this far in front it just means he's nervous.
The men's marathon continues, and we'll update you on its progress when we return to the Track and Field World Championships from Athens, Greece. The Parthenon atop the Acropolis in downtown Athens. That's one of the goals of the runners in the men's marathon, who are gradually making their way toward downtown Athens. Jean-Paul Garambare of Burundi is the leader at the moment. Still a sizable lead pack there, running toward downtown Athens from Marathon. In fact, in 1896, the first modern Olympic marathon was run along this route, beginning in Marathon, winding its way down the coast to Athens. But the marathon commemorates more than athletics. It symbolizes an event in Greek history, a tale of will and bravery. They appeared in the distance, a fleet 600 ships strong. Nearly 2,500 years ago, the Persian Empire vowing to conquer first Athens, then all of Greece. 20 miles from Athens, in the town of Marathon, 100,000 Persian troops rushed ashore, confronted by only 11,000 Greeks. Overwhelmingly undermanned, the Athenians relied on their brilliant commander, Miltiades, whose tactics divide and conquer have proved timeless. A bloody battle ensued. Days later, an unthinkable upset was complete. Today, the battlefield lies silent. A tomb containing the ashes of the 192 fallen Athenian warriors marks the site. And what endures is the spirit of the Greek victory. The battle won, a messenger named Phidippides was dispatched to relay the good news. Running the 25 miles to Athens, he delivered the one-word message, Nina Kikaman, we won, then collapsed and died. Phidippides' route from Marathon to Athens is the event which today's marathon retraces and commemorates. At Marathon, there is an inscription which reads, these men displayed indomitable courage, and each time a marathon is run, an individual's bravery is tested. Much like a September day 2,500 years ago in Marathon. And the modern descendants of Phidippides continue their marathon route. You know, it's well known, the story about Phidippides collapsing and dying after running the 25 miles from Marathon to Athens. What is less well known is that for 2 days earlier, he had run 150 miles from Marathon to Sparta and back, trying to get the Spartans to join the battle, in which they declined.
There's our first athlete going down. Didn't appear to be anything wrong. He just fell, and let's see if he gets up and tries to keep going. No. He's just going to give it up here. And we actually don't have a listing on this athlete. So this is one of the late entrants, and we don't even have a name or a listing on him. But again, Imbwane from Burundi out in front, and what we call Neverland in the marathon. He's really not trying to steal the race. He's not so far ahead that he can actually get out of psychological sight of the other runners, and he's just out there rolling along, not quite knowing what to do. If you were more experienced, I think he would go back. But it's very difficult at this point in the race because you're trying to use as little energy as possible, and yet you feel that if you slow down, maybe you've wasted something. That's Dos Santos from Brazil leading the trail pack. He is a past silver medalist in the World Championship. So that trailing pack has all the favorite runners in there. Pinto from Portugal, Fiz from Spain. Everyone is there. It's just they know that the person out in front at this point is not a threat.
Well, we've been talking about the marathon history, and of course on this original course, very rich in history. And we've talked about the 25 miles that Phidippides ran to Athens. But the marathon distance that is considered official was first used at the 1908 Olympics. That year the race began at Windsor Castle, ended in London at Olympic Stadium in front of the Royal Box. And so it was measured from Windsor Castle to the Royal Box, and that exact distance, 26 miles, 385 yards, has remained the standard for competitive marathons.
Believe it or not, Tom, they've also, they even had 10 inches there. It's 26 miles, 385 yards, and 10 inches. But obviously, as they measure the courses, they've got a blue line that all the runners are following. And you measure a certain distance on either side of that blue line, about 2 meters. So you can stay close to that line and still be legal in the race. That's how they measure, and they obviously cannot get it precisely right, but you measure it several times, take the average, and that becomes how you set your start and finish line in the race. That's Dos Santos from Brazil going through there again with the sunglasses on. And other than that, just these are trail runners from the lead pack, not among the favorites. But again, in the middle of the front, there was Turbo Tumo, who has finished second in the New York City Marathon and actually set his personal best earlier this year in Japan, running right behind Martín Fiz, who's one of the Spanish favorites. So the favorites really, when you talk about identifying them, they're hard to, because they settle into the middle of that pack, so that even there, drafting at this speed and in this heat, drafting can really help you. So you stay in the pack, you relax, and you let the more nervous runners stay out in front and break the wind.
There you see the blue line that Frank mentioned as they follow the course, and still a quite sizable lead pack as the marathon continues. We'll update you when we return to the World Championships. that motor scooter could look awfully tempting to some of the runners in the marathon as they continue on their way about 5.5 miles into their 26-mile race toward downtown Athens. And we'll be looking back at some of the high points of these World Championships, including Monday, the men's 400-meter hurdles. American men have long dominated intermediate hurdling, most recently Derek Atkins, winner of the 95 Worlds, 96 Olympics, and Brian Bronson. With Atkins a surprise victim of the heats, Bronson was the favorite entering the final for those 400-meter hurdles, and Dan O'Brien joined us for the call.
Just past 10 kilometers and still about half the field up there in front.
So a large lead pack, as you can see. The runners still have not separated into any individual leaders, although this man has been fairly in front for a while now. And
in the center, you can see Luka Tvortboy, who is the silver medalist from 1993 in this event. So, again, the leaders are up there, but the real favorites are hidden in the back of the pack.
Jean-Paul Gambare of Burundi continues in front. We'll be back with more marathon in just a moment. A slight leader for much of the time, 6:19 on the left. There's Leone of Italy, New York City Marathon winner, and they're 2:66 in the yellow and red of Spain. One of the pre-race favorites, Martín Fiz.
And so the runners you would expect to do well are starting to creep up to the front of this pack, and I think the pace has been so slow so far. Everyone's getting a little bit nervous. You can see they're spread out all the way across the road. No one wants to lead, but no one wants to be behind at this point.
Well, now let's take a look back to Monday in the women's 400 meters. With the absence of defending world and Olympic champion Marie-Josée Pérec, Australia's Cathy Freeman assumed the role of favorite. The Olympic silver medalist looked to become just her country's second world champion. But a gold medal would have added meaning for Freeman, whose pride in her Aboriginal heritage runs deep. And Cathy Freeman is pretty special stuff herself, and can there be any doubt she will be one of the huge stories of the 2000 Olympics in Sydney, in her home country of Australia. Marathon continues.
Just to add a point, Tom, I was in Australia 3 years ago in Melbourne, and they were already talking about Cathy Freeman. It is really unbelievable the pressure that she's been under there for now a number of years and how well she's been able to perform. But I think you got an idea from that piece just how good she is at dealing with pressure. And again, there's a 7-second lead here at this point in the race. It's just about 9 miles. It's sped up a little bit. Luka Tvortboy is, again, the silver medalist in the World Championships in the past when Mark Places won in 1993. So he's legitimate. It's just a question of this lead pack not letting them get too far ahead.
More marathon coming up from Athens, Greece. The marathon continues. You see the leaders just past the 10-mile mark, just short of an hour into this 26-mile race. Rich Kanaf. Meanwhile, no one has been able to dominate this marathon yet, but they are starting to get a little separation here.
Well, that's Mwenze Colombo from the Democratic Republic of Congo, formerly Zaire, who's there, along with Luka Tvortboy. And their lead is not as large as this lens would indicate. It's about 10 seconds, which in this kind of race is not critical at this point. They've been running along at about 5 minutes and 6, 5 minutes and 7 seconds per mile. That's Fabián Roncero from Spain, one of the many Spanish. They've got 5 men in this race. All have run under 2 hours and 10 minutes. He's leading that chase group, and that's Pinto from Portugal in the sunglasses there, one of the favorites coming in. So all the favorites are behind, but Roncero seems the most nervous.
And the marathon continues. We'll have another update when we return to Athens. Welcome back to the World Championships where the men's marathon continues. Tvortboy and Colombo are the two leaders. Then we have Roncero of Spain, and then another distance back to the chase pack. And those three have separated themselves somewhat from the other runners.
And they're about 11 miles, almost 12 miles into the race now. still at the point where no one would really want to try to break away and win the race, but it seems to me that Swartboy and Colombo are slowing down. Roncero sensed that. He's going to bridge the gap, and then this chase pack is still not very upset with the leaders having what's about a 10-second lead, 10 to 15 seconds at this point.
Hand from the chase pack to Roncero, and then from him to Swartboy and Colombo, who continue to show the way.
And these two runners all along have been talking to each other. You can see Colombo trying to rest his arms there. He's probably getting a little bit tight. He's run 2 hours and 12 minutes for the marathon. He's number 188. He's from Burundi, but he's based in France, as many of the African athletes are based outside of Africa. Swartboy has run all over the world, very, very experienced. He's run 2:09 for the marathon, so he's legitimate. So you know that chase pack will not let him get too far ahead. But on this particular course, in just about 3 miles is where the, just past the 25-kilometer point, at about 15, 17 miles is where the women's race really broke open. I would expect the men's race to do the same, and so that trail pack is not going to get too excited probably until that point.
Well, the runners have schooled themselves, so to speak, by watching the women's race and maybe changing their tactics?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's one way to run this course, which is from about 17 to 22 miles, run very hard up a substantial hill. And from 20 miles down to the finish, this course is unlike any other major. There's the 20-kilometer point, 103.23. It's unlike any major marathon. From 20 miles in, it's downhill. Everyone talks about the last 6 miles of the marathon being so difficult. Here, up to the 20-mile point is where it's difficult.
Well, let's take another recap now from these World Championships and look back at the women's 1,500 meters. Not since Mary Slaney's gold at the '83 Helsinki Worlds had an American woman won a medal in the 1,500 at a major outdoor competition. Here in Athens, Regina Jacobs looked to end that streak and soothe the emotional pain caused by the recent death of her grandmother. The World Championship Marathon continues. They're an hour, 11 minutes in, just past the halfway point.
They were 1:07:08 at halfway, so that means 2:14 for the marathon, but when it's going to be about 90 degrees when they finish, you would expect the race to go this slow. That's Roncero from Spain just looking around. Again, no one wants to lead at this point. It's too soon. Everyone is just trying to relax, trying to conserve energy.
Welcome back to Athens, Greece, the World Championships. The men's marathon continues. A couple of Spaniards now have made a break, Fiz and Antón.
And this is what everyone would expect if they watched the women's race yesterday, because almost at the precise point on the course that Suzuki went yesterday, Martín Fiz from Spain started the surge. Antón went with him, and Dos Santos from Brazil, he's gone along. This is Steve Moneghetti, number 41 from Australia, in the trail pack. They have to go with him. This is a major break because you don't have the defending world champion looking around, trying to get a gap, running hard up a hill at the same point where the women's race was won yesterday, and not think something's happening.
Martín Fiz of Spain, his Spanish teammate Abel Antón, and Luís Antonio dos Santos of Brazil running 1-2-3 as the marathon continues. And looking back again, let's move to the men's 110-meter hurdles. Defending world and Olympic champion Alan Johnson led a trio of Americans into the final. And unlike Atlanta, where his victory was a sideshow to the day's feats by Michael Johnson and Carl Lewis, Alan was the marquee man here on Thursday. Another hard season of training under coach Curtis Fry aimed at this one race. Welcome back to Athens, Greece, the World Championships. Marathon continues. Two Spaniards, Fiz and Antón continue to show the way about 18 miles in.
And more importantly, they are going up the last part of the climb on this course to 20 miles. Most marathons are a run to 20 miles, try to get home. Here it's a race to the 20-mile point because you have a downhill to the finish. Here's Dos Santos trailing them by about 5 seconds, but Fiz and Antón from Spain are stealing this race, and the other runners, if they want medals, are going to have to go after them.
Back in Athens, where Martín Fiz leads his Spanish teammate Abel Antón in the marathon.
And it appears they have gold and silver wrapped up. It's a question of when they stop running as a team and go for the victory. And I'll tell you, Antón can run 3:54 for the mile. Fiz can only run 4:01. Fiz is going to have to get away from him. And here, Steve Moneghetti from Australia in the white. You can see he has passed Dos Santos from Brazil. This is great. 34 years old, and finally, Steve Moneghetti may get a medal in world and Olympic competition. He's been so steady over the years, and now here he is. He's had a good strategy to let Dos Santos try to chase down the leaders, and now he goes by.
There's Steve Moneghetti of Australia in third behind Fiz and Antón of Spain in the marathon.
Between 22 and 23 miles, Moneghetti's firmly in third place. Now he has to maintain this effort. They're going downhill, and he just has to hope that for some reason Antón and Fiz come back to him.
Now let's go back to Tuesday. In the men's 400 meters, Michael Johnson entered the year as the star of track and field thanks to double golds in Gothenburg and Atlanta. But this year has been difficult. The loss to Donovan Bailey, the injured leg, his first defeat in a 400 final in 8 years, a wild card berth into the Athens 400 brought a chance to salvage his season. Dan O'Brien joined us for the call. 24.5 miles into the marathon, the two Spanish runners, Martín Fiz and Abel Antón, continue to lead the race. Now let's look back to the men's 200-meter final from Friday. The two big names, Otto Bolden of Trinidad and Tobago, desperate for a major victory to confirm his potential, and Frank Fredericks of Namibia, the soft-spoken veteran and champion from '93. Both shut out of medals in the 100 meters and hungry for redemption here. Fiz and Antón continue to run together, just about a half mile to go.
And finally, Antón comes up on his shoulder. The closest finish in World Championship history, 14 seconds when Mark Places won in Stuttgart, but he had to come from behind and go by. These two men are going to have to duke it out. And what tells me that they're not cooperating is Antón has run the whole race behind Fiz and not up on his shoulder. So Fiz has to get away from him. He can't run 3:54 for the mile. Fiz runs 4:01. Something's got to happen pretty soon.
Should be a great finish. We'll be back to Athens for the conclusion of the marathon in just a moment. Back in Athens, the battle for the marathon gold medal down to two Spaniards, Martín Fiz on the right, Abel Antón on the left.
Less than a quarter of a mile to go, and Fiz is in trouble. He just cannot run a quarter as fast as Antón. Antón can run under 4 minutes per mile. Fiz can't. They're coming around this little corner. You see the stadium. They don't go around the track here. They go right to the finish line, and there goes Antón.
So Antón moves by Fiz. He'd been running on his heels for the last several miles, just waiting for this moment. And Antón sprinting through the facade of the Olympic Stadium, the home of the modern Olympic Games, used in 1896 for the revival of the Games. And here comes Abel Antón of Spain, sprinting away from teammate Martín Fiz to take the marathon gold medal, taking a look back and safely in front.
Savoring the victory. He has so much more leg speed. You can see here how far ahead he is. It's just a matter of Fiz not being able to get away.
2:13.16 for Abel Antón of Spain. Martín Fiz takes the silver.
2:13.21, so that's the closest finish in World Championship history. And you might say to yourself, well, why didn't Fiz get away from him? Look, they congratulate each other. They really do respect each other. But in retrospect, and here comes Steve Moneghetti, third place, bronze medal. 10 years ago, 1987, he was fourth. He was fourth in the World Championships behind three men who would win the gold, silver, and bronze in the marathon in Seoul the next year. Bourdin, Salah, and Wakihuri. Finally, after all these years, Moneghetti gets his medal.
So a satisfying moment for Steve Moneghetti of Australia as you look down at this historic stadium, and Moneghetti will take the bronze medal for Australia.
And sometimes in America, it's only first, but in many, many countries of the world, getting a medal in the World Championships really does mean something. And here's Goffi from Italy coming in fourth. This was not the course to do that Italian strategy of waiting for the first half in the heat, try to come back. Because of that downhill, he couldn't catch up, so he'll finish fourth.
Just a note on that facade of the stadium, it's not original. It's just temporary, made out of some sort of plastic material, and some uproar about it. The columns are square. The Greeks never had square columns. The Romans did. There is that facade put up just for these World Championships.
So this race, it really was a race in which everyone starts off in the heat. There's Dos Santos from Brazil coming in. He'll finish in fifth place, but a very, very good run for the Spaniards who will win this team competition. And here's Dos Santos from Brazil,
who had been running third at one point about midway through the race. But obviously the Spaniards will take the team gold medal running an impressive 1-2 here in Athens. Dos Santos comes to the finish line.
This course was one in which you had to go easy early on. And just as with the women yesterday, the men got to the top of the hill at 20 miles and then really ran fast down from 35 to 40 kilometers. In other words, about the last 3 miles of this course were run under 4 minutes and 50 seconds per mile down that hill. So very slow in the beginning, very fast in the end. And there's Steve Moneghetti with the Australian flag.
A satisfying moment for Steve. His best showing in major international competition, has that World Championship bronze medal.
And what's so incredible about Moneghetti is usually at the top, marathon runners will have about 5 years. He's had 10.
Abel Antón of Spain has the olive wreath and the gold medal.
And he is a newcomer. This is his third marathon, first marathon major victory, but he's won all three.
And the Spanish take the team gold medal. Official results: Antón the gold, Fiz the silver, Moneghetti the bronze. Best U.S. finish 13th by Dave Scudamore.